And we're back. We might have a new regular appearance from Tag Taylor. We'll see. We'll see what he's thinking. But yeah, what a interesting weekend, lads. Again, another unpredictable week. Can't wait for the betting show again because we've all done amazingly well. So we've got we'll have to answer the viewers on that one. But no, what did you think, and what were your thoughts over the weekend?
Yeah, it was like you said, it's interesting at the minute. It's just consistency is very hard to find, I think, with some teams, and they're up and down. And I watched quite a lot of the Browns Colts game. What a game that was, 39-38 in the end. A bit of a dubious defensive pass interference call got Browns off the hook, I think. And Myles Garrett, doing what he's been doing this year, sort of, because I thought the Colts were outstanding. So, yeah, a good game to watch. Two interesting teams. I think I talked up the Browns as a good defensive team, and the Colts were just Gardner Minshew were just letting it rip. Jonathan Taylor making great runs as well. So yeah, a fun game to watch. We'll see how they both go next week. Going how it is, I'm sure they'll both have a dip next week, and yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
Tag, what was your thoughts over the weekend?
Yeah, just inconsistency of teams, and you're trying to work out games and matchups, and it's really tough. You look at the Raiders obviously beating the Pats last week, and then they're going to get 30 put on them by the Bears and the rookie quarterback who weren't drafted. And I took a bit of attention to that Bills-Pats game, and like I said, Pats have been really poor, and then they come out and beat the Bills. And I think the Bills are typifying this season so far where just rocks are diamonds, where a good Bills team, when they're turning up, they're beating Miami comfortably, but they're then losing to games like the Jags and last night to the Pats. So yeah, the Bills for me are just so up and down, and that's sort of where it is as where we're at the point of the season at the minute.
Well, yeah, I obviously paid more attention to the Lions Ravens game, and I think that that fits the bill. Again, a 5-1 team, obviously now going down. Lions looked atrocious. Ravens looked unbelievable last week. Obviously, Ravens didn't look as good. I think that's just the name of the game this season, isn't it, lads? I think it's tough. It's tough in every part for fantasy. You don't know which players to pick up week on week. You don't know which players to go for. Obviously, if you're into your betting, it's just a landmine at the moment, an absolute landmine. So hopefully we see some patterns forming, or at least the good teams play well consistently. I was saying to Bish actually beforehand, it might be a tough comment because apart from the Chiefs, 49ers, and maybe the Eagles, I'm still not fully convinced. But I don't think the seasons I don't think the teams are as good as they have been in previous years. I don't think there's as many good quarterbacks. The offenses aren't moving quite as fluidly as they have over the last 4 or 5 years or so. And I don't know if you lads have any thoughts on that. I'm just a bit, I'd say it's a down year for the NFL personally. I'd like to see some more stars stand up other than the ones we know and we see week in, week out.
Yeah, I feel when I made the comment on the previous show about the quarterback situation, I think we've gone from having maybe 5-6 Hall of Fame quarterback guarantees to a lot less than that. And I think that's why the Chiefs are doing so well. I think at the top of the mountain's Patrick Mahomes, and a good quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback's winning games against teams who don't have that. And that's what's separating the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes of this world for me.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think it's watching the games that I watched yesterday, it's just the defenses just seem to be scheming a lot better. And maybe that is down to the lack of quarterback sort of depth. But the pass rush, I watched Josh Allen at times yesterday, and the pass rush were just getting to him, all the time, putting him under pressure. Injuries play a part, and offensive line is obviously massive, that protection for him. So at the minute, it's just it looks like the offensive line for some teams is the bit of turnstiles at the minute, to be honest. And the defense is just thriving on it at the minute.
Yeah, it's interesting now. Obviously, the ebbs and flows, like you said, Tag, 4 years ago, you could mention, I'd even go more than 4 or 5. There's probably 7 or 8, one thing in every Philip Rivers in there, Ben Roethlisberger, and obviously Rodgers and that not injured, and Tom Brady, the GOAT. They were just everywhere. Now there's, like you said, there's probably a handful of 3 or 4 that genuinely have got a shot at it. So no. Hopefully there's some more coming in the draft and we can get the offenses exploding again. But yeah, into our first segment, lads. Not as many as normal, so a bit of good news for this week, but we've got the injury report. Bish, go on, give us your first injury.
My first one, I think, it's been not been a massive week, has it, in terms of injuries? But I think quite a significant one is Jerome Ford, the running back for the Browns. You know, he started off like a house on fire. He had a 69-yard touchdown, and then he's sort of been tackled and got his foot caught underneath the defender, and it looks like one of those, you know, the ankle or high ankle sprains they call it. So obviously, he'll get all the tests done, and we'll see where we're at in terms of how long that is. But that could be quite significant for him, I think. You know, the sort of goes as a 1-2. They've got Kareem Hunt in there as well, who's also carrying a bit of a knock as well. And Kareem Hunt seems to be the sort of pass protection receiving back goal line, and Jerome Ford's your big sort of your explosive sort of home run hitter as he proved at the weekend. So I think that's a big void to fill, if I'm honest. Pierre Strong came into the game late, had some good, decent carries, to be fair. Looks strong, looks tough. So, and with that O line, I'm sure he'll get plenty of gaps and opportunities to run through them. So yeah, I think that's a big blow for the Browns, and hopefully he's not out for too long.
Yeah, especially I think especially after Nick Chubb going out, they're really struggling in that running back depth. I thought earlier on in the season it was obviously Chubb had did he have a good first game? He got injured in the first game, didn't he? Or was it the second game?
The second game.
In the second game, yeah, they look really good in that running department. So I think it's a massive blow for them, really, because I think they probably had playoff aspirations. Well, they did have very high playoff aspirations this year. So, what do you think? Do you think they'll chuck in a trade? Do you think they'll go, or do you reckon they'll go with Pierre Strong and wait for Jerome Ford to come back?
If I'm honest, I don't think they're ready this year. You know, they're having issues at quarterback, quite significant issues, to be honest. I think this is sort of a building year with a step to making a sort of push for the playoffs next year. But so I think they'll just go with what they got. You know, they've got a great offensive line. They're a good running team. So I'm guessing they're hoping it's not a long injury, and it's just next man up. We know the running back is such an undervalued position. They'll find someone to plug a gap, I think.
Yeah. Tag, who's your injury report this week?
Yeah, I'm staying with the Browns and going with Deshaun Watson. I mean, it was touch and go every he played. Obviously, been carrying that injury, and he got through pre-game and was active, and then he took the hit as he threw the interception, banged his head, and you're sort of thinking, is he staying down because his pride's a bit hurt and he's chucked a shocker there. So he goes off and he passes concussion protocol, and then he ain't back on the field. So I just think it's the full thing around Deshaun Watson. I just think obviously to give him all that money he's had the injury. He then takes an head knock in that game and he ain't back on. And is it because he's losing trust in him, or just thinks we've got enough to beat the Colts and we'll save him for next week? I mean, Walker come in and just didn't look up to it for me either. I think you take Myles Garrett out that team. I think they're losing more games than they're winning. I think he's obviously a bit of a once in a lifetime defender. I think he's got the most sacks now in history for someone 28 years old and younger. So yeah, Deshaun Watson for me, the injury report, just a lot going on there. Was cheering on the sideline, looked happy, but you're passing a test and you're fit. Why are you on the field when you're the £200 million quarterback you are?
And I think for fantasy implications, the way you've got to look at it is it just kind of I think you saw with Amari Cooper, the number one wide receiver, he got 2 receptions. I think PJ Walker himself was more of an athletic running back anyway, who likes to rush. He's not the best passer. I think they're trying to develop his safety in passing and not have as many turnovers. But yeah, I think it just kind of eradicates any wide receiver on the Browns team, doesn't it? Unless Deshaun's there and healthy, because he didn't look good before he took the head knock anyway, did he? Like you said, with his shoulder. So I think general advice is stay away from anyone in the Browns at the moment, especially the running backs. Pierre Strong, that O-line is good, so you've got a chance. But apart from that, I don't think there's many people you can really turn to and look to at the Browns. Kind of a fantasy dead spot at the moment.
Yeah, if they're just not a good at the minute, they're not a good passing team. If they're behind in games, if they're not leading and be able to run the ball, it's a real struggle for them. Like you said, Amari Cooper, two receptions from 8 targets. Teams now with no Deshaun Watson in there, you can put potentially 2 defenders on Amari Cooper and try and get someone else to beat you. So from that offense, I'm not expecting many explosive passing plays, if I'm honest, at the minute.
And then mine, lads, it's the tight end Gerald Everett. He actually started the game with he had three receptions on 4 targets, 26 yards and a touchdown in the game, but he's got a quad injury. And I think overall it just exemplifies for fantasy that there's not many tight ends you can turn to. It narrows that down. One less tight end. It's a dogfight for whoever you have. And I think it just leads to more and more. If you've got them top 3 or 4 tight ends, you're in fantasy heaven. I think if you look around your leagues, the ones with the best tight ends are normally the ones who are higher up on them leaderboard. So probably just a long-term one to keep in mind, unless there's some changes in that position over the next couple of years. Go and draft the tight end quite high. If you're taking them punts, you have to get so lucky, don't you? So I think the general rule is get a tight end high at the moment, unless anything changes in the draft and we see some superstars coming through.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I think that's why, obviously, that Laporta has been a bit of a pull at Lions. He showed it this year. But I think that's why Kelsey goes so high. I was in my American draft. I think I took Kelsey at 5. And I just thought, Joe, what? There's such a gap normally between him and everyone else. It's just you're an instant gain and up on everybody else in the league if he stays fit. So you are right. When it comes to them tight ends, they're so few and far between.
Bish, have you got one more injury to report?
No, that's it. That's it on injuries. I mean, other small ones. I watched the Dolphins-Eagles game last night, and Jalen Hurts came out in the second half with a knee brace on. It didn't sort of. He still looked all right. He still did what he needed to do. But in the press conference after, he said he was asked if he thinks it'll limit what he does, and he said, "I hope not," which is obviously a bit of a closed answer. So yeah, maybe that's one to monitor a little bit. But other than that, no, that's it for me.
Lovely. Next one, lads. The fantasy flops. I think in general the Stars played pretty well, but as always, a few shockers in there. And I think Tag, you're gonna get us going.
I will. I think I've just got to go with Bijan Robinson. I mean, I don't know why he was active for the game. I mean, personally, on my fantasy league, the Punt Fantasy League, I'm frustrated because if Bijan's inactive, Gus Edwards is straight in my team and I've won the matchup already. Instead, he's not very well. He's got a cold. So I'd be saying man up and get out there and score some points, son. Don't be stood on the sideline feeling sorry for yourself if you're active. But yeah, Bijan's been so consistent this year. You've seen how good he is. I think he's the potentially up until the Jonathan Taylor deal, he was the highest paid running back in the league as a rookie, not even took a snap in the NFL. So showed what he's about. He's been brilliant for me all year. And for him to be active and come away with 0.3 points, and I think that was actually on the last drive of the game. The Bijan owners out there, I'm one of them, and I'm with you in feeling a bit upset on the score.
Yeah, it was shocking when Twitter were exploding, wasn't it? That first 20 minutes when people were realising that.
The best one was the Arthur Smith saying Arthur Smith must be playing against him in fantasy.
I didn't see that one. That was the best one, yeah. Shocking, wasn't it? Shocking, but like you said, it's I don't really know if how much fancy implication it has, other than I guess be careful, and Arthur Smith can't be trusted as a coach. Other than that, what a shocking result.
I think it's an interesting one because I know how big the NFL is. We know how big the business is, and the betting that comes with it, and fantasy that comes with it. And obviously, you get fined quite heavily if you don't record your players properly in terms of limited, questionable, that sort of thing. So I'm not really sure where this fits under that, because it's not really an injury, is it? But
no.
I think it will upset quite a few people. Obviously, those bettors out there, those fantasy players out there, because at the end of the day, that the massive sponsorships in the NFL. So yeah, it could maybe an interesting one.
Even that morning, they must have knew he was unwell, even if they can just do a statement saying, look, he's carrying an illness, game time decision. The frustrating thing is they sat there in Algier and Patterson as well, two very good established running backs now. So I think it's a frustrating one all around, whoever's got him involved. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes out the next few days on it.
Yeah. Bish, who's your fantasy flop?
My fantasy flop is Calvin Ridley, the Jags wide receiver, and I'm at a pickle. The Jags have been sort of awful for me all year. In fantasy particularly, I rated them highly. I went for that Trevor Lawrence, Calvin Ridley stack, and it's been a slow burner if I'm honest. But Calvin Ridley he started the season on fire. I thought he'd be, the wide receiver one there. But what they've shown there is they like to spread it about quite a lot. You've got your tight end Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk looks like he's the quite popular one at the minute, and then Zay Jones was getting his work as well, who's out injured. So Calvin Ridley, he had one reception on 4 targets for 5 yards. So putting up 1 point, and I've got him in my team as my wide receiver one, really, and it's just hurting me. And to be honest, I don't really know what I can do with him, because no one's gonna want to give me the value that I want for him. So I'm just stuck with him in my team. So, or I trade him away for what I think is not what he's worth, and then knowing my luck, then he'll start his consistency and start racking off the big points. So yeah, it's a tough one for fantasy owners. I think you got to stick with him. I'm potentially thinking about benching him until he gets another big game. Luckily I've done a deal and I've brought in another great wide receiver. So I think Calvin Ridley will have to take a bench spot for me going forward.
Big call, yeah. I think in the first 3 or 4 games, it looked like they were like hand feeding him targets, weren't they? They were looking for him. Ridder was just openly looking at Ridley and waiting till he were slightly open and chucking him the ball. And he's clearly gone away and realised some of the other wide receivers might be a bit more open now. And yeah, I think what makes it worse is that pre-season hype, which I don't want to. You did draft him because of this, but I think on Twitter a lot of people did. That pre-season hype, I think you've definitely got to be careful about what you read and what you do, because a lot of it's produced for a reason. You know what I mean? They're looking for storylines, and he looked good in them couple of videos, and you just saw Twitter going mad about him. And I think that rose his draft stock a bit higher than probably what it should have been. So I'd say general rule number 2 of this show: be careful when you watch the pre-season. I know that's not why you did it, but because you were that high on the Jags. But I think a lot of people did and liked them videos and got a bit too carried away. So I'd say in general over the year, there's always 1 or 2 that get off-season hype, don't they? And you've just got to always take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, the Ridley looked good in Atlanta as well, didn't he? Before his ban. I think that was the thing as well. He was, I think he was good that year in fantasy before he retired and the gambling suspension come in. But yeah, my advice on Ridley would be to stick with him. I think when I watched the London game, I do feel like T-Law was looking for him on them 3rd and longs and them crucial 4th downs when when they was going for it, and he had a few catches late on there. And I think with Ridley I think it will come good. If I've got Ridley in one of my other leagues, and I'm going to stick with him for the long term. I do like him. Very frustrating for owners. He has been not great, like you say, Bish. I understand if you got a good offer, letting him go, but for me, my advice on Ridley would be to stick with him.
Quick question for you boys: two underperforming wide receivers, Calvin Ridley or Amari Cooper?
Oh, I'm taking Ridley all day, every day, and just because of the QB situation, T-Law for me is he's locked in, he's out there, tough, and I think he's only going to keep getting better. T-Law, so for me, Ridley.
I'll go different than you. I think if Deshaun gets a healthy run, we know what he's like, and I think I don't know. I think Cooper has showed that he can be that man. He's had a few massive games this year, and I'm going more Cooper. I think that gap for Ridley is clearly explosive, clearly there, but I don't know, that chemistry is not quite there. I have seen a bit of chemistry between Deshaun and Cooper, but I get you. Obviously, if Deshaun doesn't get back healthy and has these inconsistent performances, you've got to probably go. I think that might answer a question for later, Bish, between our floors and ceilings one, because I'm going Cooper's upside if Deshaun's at his best, like he has been in a couple of games this year.
Nice, yeah. It's one we can bring up later then, I guess, yeah.
I've realised as well, lads, I said Ridder, didn't I? I said Ridder when describing targets. It hit me then, so I apologise for that one. But yeah, my fantasy flop is someone who I've got in quite a few drafts. It's Josh Jacobs. What can I say? He's had one good game this year. Obviously, the RB1 on the season. On the game, he carried the ball 11 times, only got 35 yards and caught one for 6 yards. The upside's just not been there, has it? That offense is just shocking. I think it's more the offensive line traditionally at the Vegas. I know obviously a different what they were called before, but for Las Vegas, they normally have a brilliant offensive line. The photos of them protecting who was Derek Carr, the former QB, were always one of the sights of the season because it were always very good. And this year it looks like it's just fell off a cliff, hasn't it? It's just there's no room for him to run. He's not getting that many receptions, and that's the only thing that's keeping his fantasy season alive. So, yeah, as a man who drafted Jacobs quite a bit, it's squeaky bum time, I think, lads. I don't know if you've got any thoughts.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah, I've drafted him in a few leagues, and I don't know how to explain it. If I'm honest, I don't know what's going on in that organisation, but it's something you've seen a little bit coming out about the wide receivers. Obviously Devontae Adams is a bit unhappy. I think he was quoted last week saying, we're not a very good team, but I'm one of the best players. Throw me the ball more. So you'd think with Devontae Adams, a good rusher in Jacobs, you could make something work on that offense, but it's just not happening. So yeah, it's back to the drawing board for them, I think, and it is squeaky bum time because, again, it's another player where I think with the upside, I think you've got to stick with him because if he puts a run together, he'll win you the game, he'll win you the league in the playoffs. So he's not one I'm trading. I'm just hoping that he can bounce back.
They've just not got better, have they, under McDaniels? And you can see there's just no confidence there. They was down, I think, 21-3 at one stage, and it was a 4th and goal, and they kicked the field goal. And I'm just like, so you're within 15 points now. I know that's 2 scores, but come on, back your team to. You've got the best wide receiver in the league, in my opinion. Devontae, feel sorry for him. You've got Josh Jacobs there. Let's see some confidence, but I just don't think the coaches don't look it. He looks rattled to me every time it goes to him. He didn't do a good job as his time as head coach at Denver. He went back to Patriots, and obviously Tom Brady's made him look good for a lot of years, and then he gets another job as an head coach at Raiders. I just don't think they've improved. In fact, I probably think they've gone backwards from the Gruden days at the Raiders.
Yeah. And this would the thing that scares me the most, I forgot to mention, is that Brian Hoyer were at QB. It was a game for the running back. Whether I know, obviously the defense knows that he should be getting the ball, but I thought the amount of times he'd be running the ball in this game would be enough to survive any defensive targeting, and he's still 11 for 35. That's just it's bad, and it was a game for him to get 100 rushing yards on God knows how many attempts, and he didn't. So yeah, I might be looking towards that McDaniel out hashtag and see what everyone else is doing.
I know a couple of my friends who are Raiders fans have wanted him out for a while. I think there was hoping he'd go after the first year, but obviously give him a bit more time.
I'll jump in, lads. I've got another fantasy flop. It's Cole Kmet. Just going from what I said earlier, I'm devastated about this. Bit of backstory. We'll go into it later, but I've recently just traded for Cole Kmet, so you've probably not heard me talking about him loads. I traded for Cole Kmet this week thinking, you know what, new QB, rookie QB, they go to the safety net at tight end. It's a consistent week for Kmet. Pulls a stinker. The QB actually is really good, and Cole Kmet didn't get a look in, and I'm devastated. And again, just to reiterate about the injury earlier that I spoke about, there's just not go get that high end tight end, lads. Go get that high end tight end, because otherwise you just don't know. There's just nothing to know, and I might have had a nightmare going into the end bit of the season, and Tag's laughing at me.
I think obviously we could talk about the trade later on. I think you've got some other good sides of it, but yeah, look, I want to win the Punt Fantasy League, and that's why I obviously try getting Kittle off yourself, Joe, because we've touched on it a lot already. The tight end market is terrible. I think Kmet, the thing with Kmet is I think he is Fields' safety net. Fields trusts him, and you see him target him. Obviously, the new QBs in there and happen, but I think you'll see the upside on Kmet when Fields is back there. I can't see him being out for too long, you wouldn't think, but no, yeah, Kmet he's had a shocker there for you, mate. I'm sorry.
Well, just a quick one, lads. With Fields being out, and how well, let me just get his name, because the pronunciation, let me try and get this one right. How well Bajent played. Does he keep his spot? Is it a Brock Purdy? Is it a Purdy? And does Bajent keep his spot if Fields returns? If he carries on the way he did, of course, not if he has a stinker next week.
I think for me, it's a definite no. He's a Division 2 quarterback. I think he's one of the first ones to win a Division 2 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think so. Even if they are thinking about, what comes with a high draft pick, Caleb Williams, I still don't think there's enough out there to justify benching Fields for him. So no, I think when Fields is fit, I think they're potentially looking at week 9. Then I think he'll be straight back in.
I don't think there's enough games to question that. We roll back the clock a few years. Tony Romo gets injured in Dallas. Dak comes in, and he don't lose any games in there for a long time. I think if you get a replacement come in and he gets 8 weeks and 7 or 8 wins, then you don't put him back in. But I don't think it'll be a long enough absence from Fields to question that.
I don't. With the way Fields plays, lads, I think you've got to at least think about it. I'm not saying you're probably right, but you've got to at least think about it, because he played so well, didn't he? He did play very well. Lads, I think is there any other fantasy flops you want to mention?
Not from me.
No, I've been covered.
Brilliant. It were a good week for the Stars, so I think we've got a big one. Here. Let me just find it. We've got Bish's breakouts, the top players of the week. We love this segment, Bish, as it's your segment. Lead the way.
Well, yesterday in the NFL, it was National Tight Ends Day. So I'm focusing on Travis Kelce. He had a massive day, but I'm just giving a rap to all the other tight ends out there. If anyone was smart enough to go out there and put a tight end treble, even a quad on, it would have come in easily. Darren Waller found the end zone. Mark Andrews got 2 touchdowns. Goddard last night got a touchdown as well. And obviously Kelce, in that big game against the Chargers, he were 12 out of 13 catches, 179 yards, and then he got shoved over for a touchdown as well. So Kelsey 29.9 fantasy points in the punt this week. He's, what can you say? He's every week, as you said, he turns up. He is a tight end, but let's be honest, he's a wide receiver one. He's probably, as you said, Tag picked him in one league at pick number 5, so he's got to go highly. I think my only question is, how long can he keep going? He's 31 years old now. That's the only bit that probably worries me a little bit, but it's great to see him doing what he's doing. And obviously, every time he touches the ball, the camera goes up to the suites and you see Taylor Swift dancing about with Brittany Mahomes as well. So it's bringing in more eyes to the NFL.
Yeah, to get a bit of money back, then we're thinking Kittle anytime touchdown against the average Vikings defense tonight. Yeah,
that's it. Complete the tight ends weekend.
I think so. Yeah, like you said, I think there was a stat earlier on that got said about last year. I think Kelsey, Waller were the 2 tight ends that only took 1 snap as a blocker. I think obviously just to back up your point, I think traditionally you're meant to block, catch, do a bit of everything. That's why I drafted Waller, and like you said, Kelsey's just a wide receiver, and at this point, I think they have another tight end that they use as the blocker, and Kelsey they just use out there as the wide receiver. They don't have amazing other wide receivers. They've got someone coming now, that rookie. Is it Rashee Rice? Have I got the?
Yeah.
Rashee Rice has been playing awesome, so that gives them another option. But like you said, out there, every snap is a pass catcher, and that's it for Kelsey at this point, isn't it?
Definitely.
Tag, who's your top player of the week?
I've gone for someone who's been consistent now for a while, and that's Travis Etienne. I think we've touched on the Jags. I think that's what's probably affecting Calvin Ridley a bit as well. I think 9 times out of 10, Etienne, whether he's running the ball or catching it, he's making 5 yards minimum every time. He's so quick getting on the outside. He's arguably at the minute one of the best receiving backs in the league with CMC and Eckler. I just think he's been a star. He got that injury, an injury what I've had, the Liz Frank injury, which is a tough one to come back from. And since he's been a fantasy star. He finished the season unbelievable last year for the Jags, and he probably still didn't go as high as what he should have in a lot of drafts this year. And I feel I did make a note as well of taking him early on if you can. And as I didn't listen to my own advice, and I'm a bit gutted really, because if you go over his averages and what he's been doing these last few weeks, just outstanding. And T-Law as well, obviously played with him at Clemson. He is his guy, and you're seeing that on the field now. The both are just ticking off together, and Etienne's a real star in my eyes.
Yeah, nothing else to say. Tag covered it well there. I'll go on mine, lads. I've got someone who we've covered quite a bit, AJ Brown. Bish gave me this stat. I can't take credit, but I think he's tied the record for the most 125-yard games in a row with 5 after this week. It's he's been unbelievable. We had in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks we were debating Smith or Brown, and I think it's clear who's took over that number 1 wide receiver in the Philly offense now. It's AJ Brown. He's the man. He's awesome. Another 15 target, 10 reception game, 137 yards and a touchdown. I don't know what else to say about him other than if you've got him, well done. If you're Devonta Smith owners like myself, you're probably getting a bit more nervous because he's slowly just absolutely taking over. And I don't think that's against Smith. He's had some brilliant games, and against some of the other wide receivers and players there. I think AJ's just that good, and trade for him if you can. But I think he'll demand a very, very high price at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Would you trade your Devontae Smith for Ridley or an Amari Cooper? Going back to there, then, Joe.
Oh, I like that. That's a great question, isn't it? I like.
How do you feel about that?
I like I like Cooper, lads. I think I'm Cooper on more of them. I know.
He has been put on the trade block, you know.
I might have to have a look.
He's been added.
He's been added to the trade block. I mean, I've just added Gus Edwards and Algier, and just both had 2 good games.
Yeah, I think I might have a look at some Amari Cooper, but I don't know if would you trade Devonta for Amari? What would you do, lads? Give me some advice.
I potentially would do that trade because you're getting a genuine wide receiver 1. I think when you're getting a genuine wide receiver 1 for a wide receiver, Devonta is going to have 2 or 3 massive games in the season, but if you consistently, and obviously I know when I touch on that later, I like my consistent players. I don't like having the range. And I think with Devonta, you're getting that because his priority at the Eagles is run with Hurts himself or his running backs or he's finding his main man AJ.
Yeah.
And there's no stopping AJ at the minute. You can put your best cornerback on him. You could put 2 cornerbacks on him. It's not one of those where if you double him up, I'm going to look for my second guy. If you double him up, he's still going to find him. So it's volume is key for that. It's not coming Devonta Smith's way.
Lads, who else has got a breakout top player of the week?
That's it for me. I just thought I'd mention all the tight ends. So to be fair, I've probably mentioned 5. So I've had 5 breakouts.
I guess a quick mention I've got to give to Deonta Foreman, 89 yards, 3 TDs, another great game for him. A great game for him. Quick shout out to him after obviously being at Carolina, having some good games there. I think he deserved another shot, and now he's getting it. I think he'll definitely have a place for the next couple of years with his opportunity that he's taken this week.
Yeah. I think the other one to mention again as well is Lamar Jackson. Obviously, had a mega week, and I mean you've got to start talking him in that MVP race again. I know he's obviously had a couple of off weeks, but he keeps performing like that. I know Mahomes is obviously leading the way, but I think Lamar, if he keeps on playing like that, he's got to be back in the top for MVP race.
He used 9 receivers as well at the weekend, so he's spreading it about nicely. So that it looks like that passing offense is starting to pick up a gear. If you add that to his running game, it could be a frightening team to come up against later on in the year.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice, lads. And then probably the most useful part of the show actually is the waiver wire pickups, the punt projects. Who we're picking up this week, lads. I didn't find many, but I think Tag, you've got a little beauty in there if he's still available.
Yeah, obviously you've dropped into him, and I was happy to go first. I'm going with Deontay Foreman. I still think he's pretty available in quite a few leagues I'm in. I think obviously the Bears haven't been great, especially if Fields is still missing another week or 2, and obviously normally Fields will run a bit himself if Bayesian is still in there. If that's how you say his name properly. Then yeah, I think if you can get Deontay Foreman, and if you're in a league, obviously what has the money side of things, we have to bid quite high. I think if you need a good running back, I think he's the man to take because obviously Khalil Herbert's still on IR. So yeah, I think if you can get Deontay Foreman and you've got some money left in the account, make sure you put it all on getting him in because he's going to be a true fantasy guy the next few weeks at least.
Brilliant. Yeah. Sorry, Tag. I didn't mean to.
No.
Steal your fire there. I apologize.
You had the stats. I didn't have the stats, so you saved me a bit of embarrassment.
All good then. Bish, who's your waiver wire pickup this week?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the running backs. I'm actually throwing 3 in there. 2 from the Rams. Kyron Williams went down injured. He's been put on IR, so he's out for at least till week 10. And they brought in Darrell Henderson, who's been at the Rams before, and Royce Freeman, and they've sort of split the role. Although I'd say Darrell Henderson's probably the starting number 1. He out carried Freeman 18-12. Henderson was hitting those holes hard. He looked pretty good, to be fair. Obviously, I watched that one. He racked up 13.1 fantasy points in the punt with 61 yards and a touchdown. So I think if you can only lean one way, I'd lean Henderson. But if Royce Freeman's out there, he might be one to just pick up and see how they get on, because they are splitting the carries, and I think whichever back is hot at the time, I think they'll continue to keep those carries. And then I'll just quickly touch on, I'll tie it in with my injury report. Jerome Ford out. Pierre Strong came in for the Browns, and as we've said, Kareem Hunt's carrying a bit of an issue, a bit of a thigh injury. He was questionable for the game. And Pierre Strong he's only owned in 4% of sleeper leagues, so I'm sure he's out there on your waiver wires. Possibly one that you look to pick up, because I still think they'll look to go 1 and 2 in terms of running backs. I don't think Kareem Hunt will get all the work, so he might be one that you pick up, and he might turn into a pretty good steal behind that great offensive line.
Like it. And then my one, lads, is just to add QB depth to you, with obviously how many injuries there is and how many there's still plenty of bye weeks to go. I'm taking a risk with this one, but I'm going my man who I've given a lot of support to. I'm going Minshew Mania, Gardner Minshew. Obviously, it could have easily made our top players of the week. I think, obviously, sadly, they lost through a dubious call, you'd say, but 305 yards, 2 touchdowns thrown, 27.1 fantasy points. I think I've always loved a bit of Minshew, and I think get him on your team, get him in one of them sub spots, because I don't think there's many other better ones. That he has the high ceiling and he has the very low floor. He's had a couple of stinkers, but with your other options, I think he's one of the best backup options out there. And with his current run, he's got New Orleans, a tough one, but still, then he's got Carolina. You've got to go all over that, I believe. And then he's got New England. Based on previous weeks, I'd say you've got to get him in for that. Based on them against Buffalo, a bit more nervous. But yeah, I think in general, I think he's got a 3-game stretch there where I think he'd be a good option if your quarterback's not in and not healthy.
Yeah, I like him. I think I went a week or two too early on him, didn't I? I think this was the week to get him. But yeah, great pick.
And then, lads, the final one, as we're called the punt, we've got the punters, the best kicker of the week. I think, obviously, if you're a aficionado on the exact positions, the punter isn't the one who does the field goals and the kicking, but we're just ignoring that for this year. And yeah, who have you got tag as your kicker for this week?
I think I've just got to go with the obvious one. That's Hopkins at Browns. I don't know if many people have him on the team, but I think he come up with 22 points. I mean, it's funny because people say kickers don't matter, but and they tend to not, and the advice we take them late. But I think if you can sometimes see the matchups they've got, a few people might have brought Hopkins in, especially with the QB situation. They might get into the red zone quite a bit, not finish it off, but they're getting them 3 points every time. And he made some quite nerve-wracking field goals to obviously help Bears win that game yesterday. So I've gone with Hopkins, for the Browns.
Nice, I like it. Bish, who's your punter?
I've gone with Koo from the Falcons. He's Iceman in it, nerves of steel, slotted over another game-winning field goal. It was 3 from 3 with his field goals, with a 51-yarder, as his longest one. So, yeah, he's becoming pretty reliable, I think, for the Falcons, last year as well as this year. So, yeah, Koo for me.
Nice. And then my one, lads, I've got a left field one. I've got Blake Group from the New Orleans Saints. I'm probably butchering that name. So, but he's got a 3-game run here. I like to pick out like a good run rather than just switching them out week on week. He's got a 3-week one of the Indianapolis Colts, the Chicago Bears, and the Minnesota Vikings. All not the best defenses. Minnesota haven't been too bad against the rush this year, but all not the best defenses. The Saints have a good enough offense, I think, to give him a high enough floor. And I think he's got 3 weeks there, good matchups, and the Saints should get some points on the board, hopefully, depending on the quarterback situation at the moment. But lads, I think I'm going to chuck it over to you. I've led that. You've got some debates and some topics you want to talk about. So, Bish, I'll chuck it over to you.
I think first off, let's talk about. We mentioned them earlier. Some of the trades. I know I'm playing a few leagues with Tag, and I know he's very active and trading week to week. So, well, you've done a few, Tag. I think 2 in one day, two pretty big ones.
Yeah, in the punt. Yeah, I'm always looking to trade. I'm always looking to improve. I think people who tend to sit on the team all year don't tend to win. Obviously, they get very lucky and they've drafted unbelievable. But I like to look for consistency, youth. I mean, obviously, I've part of the trade with Joe. I've took George Kittle, which I wouldn't normally do because I don't like taking players on much who have a lot of history of injuries. I think in another league, obviously, I traded Eckler to you, Bish, and I was happy to look for that trade because Eckler, obviously, was brilliant last year, but he has had his injuries before. He had the ankle injury. Yeah, he's coming back, but I just look for consistency and health. And obviously, Joe was into me at the start of the year with a punt with how young my team was. But I think if they're young and they haven't got much injuries, but they're going to be starters, then that's a bit for my liking. And obviously I did the trade. I did the trade with Joe, obviously taking Kittle. I think it was Kittle, Derrick Henry, and Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
Obviously, big Derrick don't tend to get injured much, so I knew I'd obviously be sitting on him. And then I need a tight end upgrade. I don't really like Kittle, but I'll sit on him for the time being. But I know you liked a bit of Keenan Allen, and again, he's got that injury history. So as soon as I could look at making a trade with yourself, Bish, and then take Keenan Allen and CJ Stroud to you for Kenneth Walker. I think with Kenneth Walker there, you've got a player who is consistent and young and not many injuries. So that ticks my boats in fantasy. So, yeah, I'm happy now because I know obviously Bijan has got the youth and he was a bit of a flop this week. But the fact I've got Bijan, Derrick Henry and Kenneth Walker there, I think I've got three lads who should hopefully stay fit and stay the course of the year for me at the running backs.
I think I've got to dive in and explain myself. Obviously, like you said, you did Keenan Allen, George Kittle, and Derrick Henry. I received, and I imagine I'll get a bit of flack for this, Aaron Jones, Kyren Williams, and Cole Kmet. With Kittle's up and down, I know I come on the show and say, I love my big performers low. I wanted a bit more consistency. So I took Cole Kmet, who's been the more consistent, higher. I think he ranks 10th in the tight end position this year. Kittle was 12th going into this week. Might be a bit different now. Might get that one wrong. I'm hoping it steadies out, and if Fields comes back, as we discussed earlier, he is the safety net there. With Aaron Jones, I took a player who's the outright RB1 against Derrick Henry, who's losing his. I thought he was losing his spot more and more to Ty J. Spears. AJ Dillon had his chance and he didn't take it. So I think it's Jones's backfield. Again, didn't have the best of weeks this week, but I'm hoping he's just back from injury. I'm hoping he can build on that consistency. And the big one for me, which is the more shocking one, and I want to explain my thing, is the Kyren Williams. Obviously, just been placed on IR, so I'm not really seeing any upside for that. I might have been way too confident and I picked that in terms of drafting for the playoffs. I know that shows very consistency because I've probably just lost this week, so I'm going nearly evens on the year. I think 4-3. But yeah, I'm going for the playoffs. I think Kyren Williams showed enough for me that I can wait on him, and when it comes time for that playoff run, I've got one of the best running backs for situation in the league. Hopefully, I'm hoping Darrell Henderson and the other lads you mentioned don't do that well. So when he comes back in, it's his backfield again. So yeah, bit of explanation there. I'm drafting for the playoffs. Don't trust Henry too much anymore. And like you said, Keenan Allen, Kittle, massive injuries. So massive injury worries. Even though I've just took Kyren Williams, so I guess makes sense of that one.
Yeah. To defend you on that side, I do agree that Kyren Williams. Look, with fantasy football, And I've let my lesson a lot. It don't matter what your record is, on you make them playoffs, then it's about performing in the playoffs. And Karen Williams as well is going to be at a Rams team who are going to be battling right to the end for a wild card spot potentially. So they won't be resting players in the later weeks. So Karen Williams should be back for that. So I do like that side. And with Aaron Jones, obviously, I took a big look in the Green Bay and Denver game yesterday, but he was on a snap count, Aaron Jones. When he was in, he looked electric again, and we couldn't handle him, Denver, yesterday. So he was on a snap count. So I do think, obviously, over the next few weeks, you'll get a lot of upside from Aaron Jones. So that's one thing I do when I go into my trades. I try and sit on the other player's team and think, right, what do I need and how do I get better? And I think that's how you have to approach trades, not just chuck a wild thing out there. Look as if you've got that team and where you think you can let a player go and what upside brings to that team. And that's how I try and trade.
Yeah, so you're trying to, it's best for both, isn't it? You're trying to both benefit from the trade.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think a big one for me is a lot of people might question me getting rid of Kenneth Walker. And I'm actually a fan of Seattle and how they run the ball. But I was just looking at his, obviously I owned him, looking at his performances and the schedule coming up. The schedule gets a bit tougher for him.
Yeah.
And before last week against the Cardinals was his first game over 100 yards. His score's been propped up with touchdowns. And I was just looking at the schedule and the games coming up. And I'm just thinking, if those touchdowns are taken away and he's not getting that 100 yards, can I get some value out of him now and sort of add that on the back end with this player that I bring in? So to be fair, I put him up, I think 2 weeks ago because he had the Bengals and the Cardinals. I expected a big game from him, but that's the bait for me. I try to put him out there. Someone will grab him and take him. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. To be honest, I wasn't sure, so I thought I'd move away from him. And Keenan Allen, I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. We spoke about injuries. He is injured. He does have his injuries, but with Mike Williams out, he's been their offense really. To be honest, I think the only bad thing and CJ Stroud, those that are followers, we know the issues I've had with Trevor Lawrence and what a pickle I'm in with the Jags. So as we go on, I think when you get to the playoffs, it's nice to have that solid quarterback on your bench because, once the trade deadline shuts, more than likely, on the waiver wire, you're not going to have a decent quarterback. So if you've got aspirations of making the playoffs, it's nice to have a decent quarterback on your bench. I think the only thing I did wrong is I gave you Josh Palmer because I was going to get rid of him anyway. But what I should have done is I think I should have asked for some fab money from you for that. Because you would have had to use fab to pick him up on the waiver wire.
Yeah,
I've sort of chucked him in as a freebie, whereas
that's where my experience come in, wasn't it? Yeah. I said, the deal's done, but who are you going to get rid of? Because I was hoping it was going to be Palmer. And when you said Palmer, because I thought I don't want Mims. I think you're going to come at me with Mims here. But
I thought about it, and I still think Mims can be a game changer coming from the back end of the season.
Definitely.
And I'm not playing Allen and Palmer, so I thought if I'm getting Allen, I'll get rid of Palmer. But yeah, I probably should have asked for a bit of fab off you there.
But on the flip side as well, Bish, again, sitting in your shoes on your team, your running backs are stacked. You've already got that position covered. So to get value at wide receiver when you've got a Ridley who you are happy with, it's a good trade for you on that side. Whereas me, I'm very happy with my wide receivers, what I've got locked in there. So I need to strengthen that running back position.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy. I've got Puka, Keenan Allen now, and I've got Deontay Johnson who's just come back with the upside of Jameson Williams on the bench as well. So and obviously Calvin Ridley. So I've got some options there. It's just picking it week to week, really. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. I think just back to that debate on, we said Cooper and Ridley, didn't we? I think we were both. Well, I think you were both split. Tagger, you were Ridley. Joe, you were Cooper. I think for me, I go for volume, and that's what scares me with Ridley because I was all Ridley because I thought he could be that wide receiver one, but now I'm slowly thinking, and I think you beat me to it there. Last night's Grimesy put Cooper up on the trade block, and I'm thinking, okay, Cooper. He didn't have it this week, but he's still got the 8 receptions. He's still getting peppered left, right, and centre. It's just, can he? Is Deshaun coming back? What's it going to be like? So yeah, I guess that's but now I guess I'm not the only one chasing him, so it might be a race, Joe.
It will. I think with I'm just looking at his game log here. He's had 3 games over 85. Well, his bottom one were 90, and then he's had 3 games with it underneath now, obviously having the bye in week 5. So it's a massive up and down player, obviously dependent on how good Deshaun plays, which at the moment is unpredictable whether he's fit or not. So I like the boom and bust. And if somehow later in the year, Deshaun does get over these injuries and has a decent run, when they might have a playoff chance of getting that wild card spot, I'm all over Cooper, and I think I'm definitely looking to trade him, and I might chuck Devonta Smith and see what else I've got in there, and might go pick him up. Bish, we'll have to see who.
I know Grimesy. I've been discussing with Grimesy because I offered him Walker. I was trying to get Jonathan Taylor off him, but he wasn't having none of it. He's fancying himself. He's had a little bit of a rivalry going on with Tag as well. He's picked it. I think is it week 13? I think you play again, or it's somewhere later on in the year.
Well, so I'll already be cemented in top spots. I might rest some players.
Yeah, he's building nicely. I know this week as well. It looks like all 3 of us are. Oh, yours is still pretty tight, Tag. I think your game in it.
Like I said, I'm frustrated with Beige on there because it's a top of table battle. I've got some big players on buys, and I should have Farrell put to bed, Isaac, but I think I just need 10 points from Kittle tonight, and his tight ends week. Purdy seems to be fanning Kittle a bit, so I'm backing myself to get the win tonight and to Kittle to get them 10 points.
Yeah, no Debo obviously as well, and CMC still a question mark, so you'd fancy it, wouldn't you? Fancy that.
Yeah.
Right, lads. Good show. Any last comments?
Well, you won't see me now. I'll be happily come back on when we get halfway through the season for a bit of a halfway through the season review. Happily to come back on and share some thoughts and see what it's like as I'm looking down on you all at top of the table.
Nice. Yeah, have you got a testimonial event coming up this week?
Yeah, probably not many for these viewers on Friday.
Okay.
I've got a ladies' night and a naked calendar launch, so we'll stay away from that. But I have got getting announced soon. I've got a Q&A in November, and then I've got a quiz night, and then I've got a big Q&A with Sam Burgess getting announced soon in December. So that should be a bit of fun to speak to Sam, and I'm going to be putting the microphone to the floor for anybody to ask Sam any questions they want. So now Sam Burgess is over, I thought I'd grab him and get him on board before he gets too busy sorting out the Wolves.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, yeah, lads, I'll like, subscribe, share with everyone. We've got a big announcement coming next week from Bish. So stay tuned. It's good news. I think it'll make everything a lot easier going forward. So let's have it. And please share with everyone, and let's keep it going. See you soon.